Hey everyone, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in to Relevant Jukebox, and today we're going to talk about the latest album from Saint Etienne. I've been trying to tell you. So this is a brand new full-length album and the 10th in the discography of the alternative dance group, who does have a classic album under their belt, and of course I'm talking about their 1991 debut Fox-based Alpha, which is a really great and engaging blend of electronic music, dance, and pop that I highly suggest listening to if you haven't already. Now this new album over here does sort of feel like a long-lost relic from the 90s. Specifically, the samples that were used on here are from songs released from 1997 to 2001, and also throw in some field recordings in there as well. But at the same time, it feels displaced from the 90s, because most of these tracks are written in this very slow, churning, developing way, almost like it's pulling influence from hypnagogic pop, or maybe some kind of like experimental electronic release you'd find thumbing around on Bandcamp or in like the vaporwave scene. And I do think this will catch your ear if you're into that kind of stuff. And the vibe that this album puts out is like very similar feeling to the album Beat by Bowery Electric, which if you haven't heard that album is sort of like walking around the city really stoned on an overcast rainy day or something. However, there is a little bit more of a brighter tone in this release over here, as the whole thing is meant to kind of encapsulate a very optimistic feel that you got from late 90s pop. I think the lead single Pond House is a really great example of this. There's a Natalie Imbruglia sample that's used on this track, which, whew, I mean, there's a throwback to the 90s for you. And I'm really liking the beat. It's like really thick, like you're drinking a milkshake or something like that. And it does have these like really subtle influences of dub in there in the bass lines. This certainly isn't the type of dance track you're gonna hear bumping in the club though. I mean, it is way too isolated feeling for that. Now, the track that follows that, Fontaine, if I'm saying that correctly, is certainly a vibe that I really like. When this beat kicks in, everything is just so dark and nocturnal and also sensual, though. It's so intoxicating. I will say, though, one thing that sort of pulls me out of this vibe a little bit are the vocals that come into the track. I mean, just as I'm starting to settle into this groove and just really get into it, it's almost like somebody like Tom York just like comes out and starts whispering into my ear or something like that. It's kind of distracting. However, I do like how the track ties up nicely with those vocals and everything just starts kind of ascending as the beat changes towards the end. The following track, Little K, is a very interesting crossroads of feelings. It's almost like being outside in the woods on a nice summery day and also being stuck in like a Windows 98 boot up program. The vibe on this one is so much more starry-eyed than everything else that lands on the LP, but is also sort of disappointing as it doesn't really develop and progress into anything. However, I was more impressed with the track Blue Kite that comes after. It's definitely one of those tracks that sounds like it's in reverse but also progressing forward at the same time, mainly from that reversed sample that's used that sounds like it could have been lifted from some kind of like dramatic scene in a movie. And I like how all of the instrumentation of this track underneath it is just building and building and building. Now, as much as I was drawn into some of these like more downtrodden bummer electronic beats, there are definitely a few tracks on here that I didn't get down with, and that's mainly because there's a few cuts on here that really stick out and sound like the band's trying to explore direction in like post-rock or something. I'm talking about tracks like the opening cut, Music Again, which is a very odd choice to kick off the LP, as nothing else that lands on the album really sounds like it, and it's not really like a strong opening track in any way. Also, I Remember It Well that sits in the middle of this album is just kind of like a transitory interlude that doesn't add anything to the track list and is pretty plain sounding. And the closing track ties things up in a little bit more of like a twinkly way, but it's just a little bit more forgettable compared to some of the stronger cuts in the bunch. So I mean, overall, I did enjoy this album. I just really wish there weren't any of those like post-rock cuts to break up this track list, as I don't think they fit aesthetically on here, but a majority of this material is enjoyable, so I do think it is worth checking out. And with that being said, I'm feeling a 7 over here, and I've been trying to tell you. So for all you vinyl collectors out there are a few different bundles to choose from up on Saint Etienne's website. They do have a deluxe bundle that's kind of expensive at $85. If you didn't want to shell out all that money for it, there is a clear variant that they also have going, and when that sells out, you have a standard black. And if you have listened to this new Saint Etienne project already, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and share, and if you want more content from me, hit that subscribe button. Peace.